Good day, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Andrew's Life. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day, afternoon, evening so far, whatever time of day you're going to be watching this video. Now, as many of you can recall, last week I put out a video titled, I Walked Off My Job, Now What? Now, although I got a lot of positive feedback, which I appreciate, I also got a fair amount of criticism, which I appreciate that as well, because not only does it help with the growth of my channel, but it also gives me a video to do for this evening. I want to have a discussion about some of the criticism I received. So, well, so as I'm gonna most likely title this video, do I regret walking off my job? The decision of me walking off my job last week, was it a reckless decision or was it a logical one? I'm going to answer that question. But however, before I do, I just want to make a quick disclaimer. Now, anything that I discuss that's financial, it is not financial advice. It is just things that I do from a financial standpoint for myself. So now that I got the disclaimer out of the way, let's get to the video. Now, for starters, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself from a financial standpoint. And this, I don't mean to brag. I just want to give you guys a brief background about myself. Now, for starters, I'm 45 years old. Just turned 45 last week. And, from a financial standpoint, I do not have any car notes. I do not have any credit card debts. I do not owe student loans. I do not have any children. And yes, the house that I'm currently living in is paid off. And I have plenty of money set aside for times, for emergencies, and also times like this where I'm not currently working a regular 9 to 5, so to speak. So, do I regret walking off my job? The quick answer to that decision is no. I mean, a lot of you criticize me, and you're telling me about how hard it is to find work and how I should have gave a 2-week notice, and it's not a good idea to quit a job without having another job. And you know what? All that advice is sound. And if I was broke, I would have kept that job until I found another job. Or if I had children to take care of and didn't have the money necessary, and it didn't have the emergency money necessary to take care of my children, if I had any, again, I would have kept that job until I found another job. But I do not have any children. I'm not rich by any means, but either am I broke. So, with all that being said, I don't feel that my decision to walk off the job was reckless. And fortunately, I have reached a point in my life from a financial standpoint to where when it comes to work, I don't have to, everything doesn't have to be about money. And what I mean by that is there's certain occupations out here that pay extremely well, but they're also extremely stressful. And I'm just not willing to go into certain kind of occupations for those reasons. Now, the job that I've had, I mean, for Alabama, the pay was fairly decent. But again, I don't need to do everything that I do when it comes to work is not solely about money. I mean, now if you guys want to know why I walked off my last job here in Alabama, I'm not gonna really go into a deep discussion on it about that on this video. You can go back and watch the video that I put out last week. I walked off my job now what? That's the title of the video, and I put it out last week on a. I believe I put out that video last week on a Thursday. So last Thursday I put that video out. So go check it out if you want to know the details of what went on and why I walked off. But just due to the crap that was going on at that job, I mean, I've had, now just a brief, just briefly discussing that job. I've had the job for 2 months, and the first 2 weeks of that job, everything was good. And then after 2 weeks, I started having issues with the co-workers. And again, if you want to know the details, go back and watch that video that I put out last week. But, after a month and a half, well, really it's been a little over a month and a half that I've been having issues at this job, I just got fed up. I had enough. Now, I consider myself to be a fairly even-tempered person. I consider myself to be fairly chilled. But there's just certain stuff that when it goes on for an extended period of time, I just get sick of it. I mean, it got to the point that at this job, just the thought of going into work made me tired. Like, I would wake up in the morning and do what I had to do to get ready in the morning time. Drive an hour there. And then when I got there, it's almost like the bit of energy that I had just evaporated. And when I got in the building, I was tired. I was unmotivated. I didn't feel like doing the darn thing there. And I'm gonna be honest with you, people. Due to some of the craziness that was going on at the job that I walked off of last week. I mean, there was I don't consider myself to be a hateful person, but it got to the point where I started having hate in my heart for these people who I worked among, just due to the shenanigans that were going on. And I'm not a hateful person. And typically, I don't go around being angry or being mad or any of that kind of stuff. But it got to the point where, I was starting to be somewhat of an angry person that was always pissed off. And that's not who I am, typically. And, all this combined together began to have a negative effect on my mental health. And for those of you that know anything about health, a lot of times when your mental health gets to a point where when your mental health gets real bad, it starts to spill over into your physical health, which is what was happening to me. Because, during the time I had this job, during the time I had this job, like I said, the first 2 weeks was okay. And then after that is when I began having all my issues. And it got to the point at this job where, whenever I got off of work, the only thing I feel like doing is coming home and going to sleep. Now, of course, whenever I got off of work, I came home and I sat down in front of the computer and I made my videos. And actually, me doing my videos and working on this channel made me feel a lot better. It gave me a sense of purpose, if you will. It just made me feel better. It was therapeutic for me to come home and do my videos and know that I'm building my brand here on this channel. But whenever I would get done doing that, I would be super tired, and the only thing I feel like doing is eating some junk food and going to bed. And to be quite frank with you people, that's pretty much what I did during the time I had that job. I come home, I eat some junk food, I eat a whole crap load of it, and I'll make a video for the channel, of course, and then I'll go to bed. I didn't bother to go exercise. I didn't bother to take care of my health. And so yeah, it got to the point where this job that I walked off of last week began to affect my mental and physical health. And at the end of the day, when things were transpiring on the day that I walked off, I just thought about everything for a moment. I thought about how I felt. I thought about the money that I had stashed away for when situations like that transpired. And I was like, you know what? I ain't got to put up with this crap. And I decided to leave. Because to me, my dignity is more important. Well, my dignity is more important than the money that I was making at that job. I mean, it ain't like I was making like six figures or anything like that. I mean, so yeah, but the money I was making at that job, my dignity was more important than that money. And I wasn't going to allow anybody to take my dignity away over a paycheck. I just wasn't going to allow that to happen. And situations like this that happened to me, I mean, let me back up here. And yes, I'm very well aware of the economy being the way it is. I know that we're in a recession, which is why I made the video that I made. Sorry about that. Which is why I made a video that I made of talking about preparing for homelessness, which I just did. I just did the second series of that video today. Hopefully, you guys go check it out. So I'm very well aware that yes, there is a recession going on, and I'm very well aware that for many people, finding employment has been a challenge to say the least, and that is the reason why. Because honestly, if we weren't in a recession and the economy was going normal like it was in maybe 2020, like it was maybe in 2019 or in even 2021 or 2022, the first time that, you know, the first time I ran into some issues like I discussed on my video that I made last week about me walking off my job, the first time crap like that would have been on, I would have walked off right there. I mean, after those first couple of weeks, I would have walked off right there. And I did not want to walk off the job. I really didn't. But it got to the point where it was affecting my health. So either that, I mean, I could have either stuck around and earned a few more paychecks and my health would have suffered as a result, or I could have, or I could just walk off as I did, and then I could preserve my dignity and my health. And I I am so happy that I made the decision to walk off and sustain some degree of dignity, and also get myself back to being healthier. Which, by the way, for the last week, I've been going to the gym. I've been working out again, and every I mean, I've been on the treadmill for a little bit. Now I got a bad ankle, so I can't run super fast. So I do what I can do. And earlier today, when I shot my video that I just posted earlier, I was at the park just walking around. So I've been doing a lot more exercising, and I've also cut. I mean, I'm also down to 2 meals a day, and I've been drinking more. Like I've been drinking more water just to stay hydrated, and also to try to curb my appetite a little bit. So I'm working on myself. I'm trying to lose some. I'm working on myself. I'm trying to lose some of this weight so I can be healthier. And of course, I'm working on getting this channel built up. And I'm also I got some other stuff that I'm thinking about doing in terms of an income. I don't know exactly what is going to transpire of that. I'm just thinking. So, yes, I am very well aware that there's a recession and that it's hard to find work. But like I said, I don't have a lot of bills, and I do have I do have a sizable emergency fund, so I don't regret walking off my job, and I don't think I made a reckless decision. Now, and this type of a situation that I'm discussing that I went through is the exact reason why I encourage people, if all possible, to 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 uh, to live below your means. However that looks like to you, whatever it is you gotta do to structure your lifestyle to where you're living below your means is what you need to be doing. I understand for a lot of people that may not be necessarily a possible thing to do, and there was a time in my life where that wasn't a possible thing to do, but I've kind of worked things out to where I made it possible to do, to where I could live below my means, which is what I'm doing today, which is what I've been doing for the last several years. And that's why I encourage people to live below their means. That's why I choose to drive older vehicles to where I don't have to make a payment. I just buy a vehicle and pay cash. Like, both my vehicles combined are worth less than one vehicle that many people are driving. And before I had the money to buy this house I'm living in right now, I mean, I spent several years living in lower price homes, living in the hood. I spent several years living in the hood because that was the only way that I could A, realize my dream of wanting to be a homeowner, and B, do it without having a ton of debt. Do it to where I could pay off the mortgage. And another thing which I like to tell you guys about myself is, obviously, I mean, like I said, I'm not rich. I still got ways to go before I can truthfully say with confidence that I have reached my financial goals in life. I got ways to go, I'm not gonna lie. But like when I look at where I'm at right now, I mean, it didn't just happen overnight. I mean, uh, you know, I filed bankruptcy back in 2009. I explained this on some other video that I made. I don't know what video it was, I lost track. But, like I told you guys, there was a time in my life to where I was dead broke, didn't have a dime. I filed bankruptcy. I had a brand new house at the time. I let it go. I had two newer vehicles that I was making payments on. Let them go, and for a while I was driving a '94 Mercury Villager that I paid $450 for that didn't even have power steering working on it. So I know how it is to be broke. I had some humbling experiences, and like I told you guys before, I mean, I was when I was living in Toledo. I mean, it got to the point where I was so broke, I had to go to the Salvation Army, and I had to accept food stamps from the state of Ohio because I didn't have no money for food. And there was a short period of time that when I got to Indianapolis, I was living out of my car when I first got there. But over the years, like over the years, Like when I was, for the majority of the time that I was living in Indiana, I always kept two jobs. Always. Like when I was in Indiana, I always kept two jobs. Like I would say combined, I was working an average of 60 hours a week. Sometimes I would push it, and between two jobs, I may have been doing maybe 65 hours a week. On occasion, even 70. And not only did I keep two jobs, but I also donated plasma twice a week. And then ultimately, I went to I decided to take a job up in North Dakota working in the oil field, and I did that for about a couple of years. And during the time I was up there doing that, I saved all that. I saved all that money. I mean, because when I first got the job up there working the oil field at that time, my house in, I mean, actually, when I first got that job, my house in Anderson, Indiana, was already paid off. Because what happened was, shortly after I paid off my house in Anderson, I decided to celebrate by taking a vacation. So whenever I got vacation time on the job that I had in Anderson, on the job that I had up in Indiana at the time, I decided to take a trip up to North Dakota. Which when I went up there, I slept in my van. At the time, I had a '96 Plymouth Forager, and during the time I was up there, I talked to a couple of people at this one restaurant, and they told me about the oil field. So, one thing led to another, and I went and I put in several applications, and I finally got hired on somewhere. So, I was in the oil field for about a couple of years, and during the time I was there, I saved the vast majority of that money. I mean, I had to pay some bills. Obviously, I had to pay bills, and plus I had to pay for my own flights back and forth because I was working 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and during the 2 weeks I had off, I flew back home to Indiana, and then I had to fly back up to North Dakota after 2 weeks to report back to work. So, but the majority of the money I was making during that time, I saved it. And then ultimately, I purchased myself a second house in Indiana. I fixed it up a little bit. I rented it out. And to make a long story short, it was a nightmare and a half having tenants. So that didn't last real long. So I ended up I ended up evicting them. And then I decided to sell the house. Now, when I decided to sell the house, I didn't make a lot of money off that transaction, but I made a little. So between the little bit of money I made being a landlord and the money that I made through the sale of my houses up in Indiana and the money that I saved from when I was in the oil field and other monies that I've been saving, even when I left the oil field, I mean, I still continued. When I left the oil field, I still continued to save money. Like when I went back to Indiana and worked a regular job, so to speak. I mean, even then, I was working. Well, when I came back to Indiana, I took a job working at a factory manufacturing exhaust pipes for Toyotas and Nissans and Hondas, and we were doing 60 hours a week. So again, I was making decent money. I was able to set a substantial amount of money aside in savings, and I took that money and I put it in. I put it in a couple of mutual funds and a Roth IRA. So all the money that I was able to save over the years allowed me to buy the house I'm in right now, to where I didn't have to worry about making no mortgage payments. I was able to buy this house and pay cash. And again, I don't mean to say all this to brag, because I'm not that type of dude. And this is not financial advice. I want to emphasize that as well. I'm just kind of explaining to you guys why it is that I chose to walk off my job last week, and why and how it and how I was able to do that despite there being a recession. Despite that, yeah, it's challenging for many people to find work, and a lot of people are struggling as a result. And I'm hoping you guys get something out of this video. I really am. And like I said, this is the reason why I try to live below my means. I don't, like I said, my vehicles are older. Now, let's see what else. Look at what I'm wearing right now, man. I'm wearing a t-shirt. Now this t-shirt I'm wearing right now, guess where I got it from? I mean, this t-shirt came in a pack. Now I went to Walmart. This t-shirt came from Walmart. Now, for those of you that are familiar with Walmart, which I'm pretty sure that's damn near everybody who's watching right now. Like, if you go to Walmart and you go into their t-shirt, socks, and underwear section. I mean, I don't know if it's like this now, but at the time I bought this t-shirt back in 2020, you were able to buy a package of 5 t-shirts. And so I bought this package of 5 t-shirts, and I can't remember what I paid. I think I may have paid like maybe $15. I forgot. But this is back in 2020. So I say that just to, I say that because, you know, I guess what I'm trying to emphasize here is how frugal that I am when it comes to clothing. I don't buy expensive clothes. I haven't bought expensive clothes ever since I first filed bankruptcy back in '09. I mean, back in, yeah, well, yeah, back in it's back in '09. So, well, no, I filed I can't remember, I think it was either late in '08, early in '09 that I filed my bankruptcy. But ever since that time, I haven't bought any new clothes ever since. Like, most of the clothes I buy, I either buy from Goodwill, or on an occasion, I might buy like t-shirts and socks and underwear at Walmart. Now, every so often, once in a blue moon, I might buy some brand new stuff at a department store. But for the most part, I'll buy my clothes at Goodwill. Or I might go to garage sales. And typically I go into the suburbs where people have a little bit of money. And I try to buy quality stuff when it comes to my clothing. So, just due to my savvy spending habits, I've been able to save a substantial amount of money over the years, which is why when I get a job and I feel I'm being treated some kind of way, I'll put up with it for a little bit. But then when I get sick and tired of putting up with it, I'm out of there. I'm gone. I'm not giving no 2-week notice. Forget all that. And speaking of a 2-week notice, I look at a 2-week notice like this. Now, if I'm working a job and I like the job and the people are decent, then yes. If I leave the job for whatever reason, I will put a 2-week notice in. Like, for an example, I had a decent job up in Indiana, because before I came back here to Alabama, I was up in Indiana for a brief period of time. And I took a job up there. You know, the job was decent. I liked the supervisor. The co-workers were decent. I just wanted to come back down here to Alabama, which is why I quit that job. Now, with that job, I gave them a 2-week notice because I figure if I went back to Indiana and that position was available, I would take it in a heartbeat if I needed to. Because I liked the job and I liked the supervisor and the co-workers were decent. But the job that I walked off of last week, I mean, for one, I didn't like the people. I didn't really care much for the management. And I didn't really care for the job itself, to be quite frank. So I have no desire to go back to that job anyway. And secondly, even if I would have put it on 2 week notice, some of the people who I had issues with, you know, there's a good chance that if for some reason I went and I try to get that job back, they probably wouldn't want me back anyways because I bumped heads with a few people there. And secondly, I wouldn't want to work around those people no way. So that's the reason why I don't always do a 2 week notice. Which in the case of last week, I didn't do a 2 week notice and I don't regret it at all. So yeah, let my experience be a lesson to you people out here. If you're able to live below your means, don't blow all your money on new clothes. Don't blow all your money on jewelry. For all you men out here, don't blow a bunch of money on trying to impress the ladies. It ain't worth it. If they can't accept you for who you are, then, forget them. Just stay single or wait until a woman comes into your life that will accept you for you and not your money. And when it comes to buying a house, same thing. Don't go out here and buy anything extravagant. I know a lot of you aren't going to do what I did. I put houses in the hood. And just over time, just fix them up bit by bit. Like, I had a house in Anderson, Indiana. And I told you guys this briefly on one of my older videos, but I'm going to tell you all this again. I had a house in Anderson, Indiana that I purchased it on land contract, and the price of the house was $14,000 if I can remember correctly. Now this house had a bad water line because I remember when I got that first water bill, it's like $500, man, that's crazy. So making a long story short, the plumbers came out and it was discovered that my water line was bad, so I decided to have the city cut the water off because at the time I wasn't making a lot of money and I just could not afford to pay a utility bill of $500 every month. I just didn't have that kind of money. So I lived over a year without running water because I wanted to pay down the mortgage and I also wanted to save money for that new water line repair. That way, whenever I got that repair done, it was done in cash. And also, whenever I got that water line repaired, it was going to be for a house that I owned, not for a house that somebody else owned. I'm funny like that. I know I'm petty. I'm funny. I don't like spending a lot of money on a house that technically isn't my house. So that's how I've always done things. But yeah, so I lived in the hood for some time. Just so I can, like I said, realize my dream of home ownership, and at the same time not put myself in a crap load of debt. And at the time, it was actually cheaper to do that than to pay rent. And two, I don't like paying rent. I don't like apartment living. In fact, during the time that I've owned that house that was in the hood in Anderson, I had there were a couple of female friends that, we talked to. I talked to. And then when I offered to hey man, you can come to my house, whatever, they didn't want to come over because of where I lived, and they told me straight up. So it is what it is, man. It's okay. That's cool. I played it cool. What else was I going to do? Be upset? I'm not going to be upset now. Because I had a bigger goal. I was looking at things from I was looking at the big picture, so to speak. So I didn't really give two craps about what anybody thought. I didn't care. And during the time that I was trying to pay down this house, I didn't buy no clothes at all. The clothes that I had, I kept. I didn't buy no new clothes. I did buy shoes because I got a bad ankle, so I do got to have some good shoes. But other than that, I didn't buy no new clothes at all. So, hopefully you guys got something out of the video. Hopefully this video encourages you guys to live below your means and to not try to keep up with the trends or keep up with the Joneses. Because as long as you live below your means and you stack up your money the best you can, as much as you can, one day, if you get a job that you don't like and you feel you're being disrespected or whatever the case might be, you can do like what I did last week. Give them the peripheral middle finger and walk out. So, on that note, I'm going to end it. And everybody have a blessed rest of the day, evening, whatever the time of the day you're watching the video. And if you like what I do, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. And while you're at it, if you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel and stay blessed.